Hello there, folks. This is Brian from Tottenham Away, Lily White Lane. Robbie has asked me to give you guys an impression on my thoughts on Nuno Espirito Santo, what to expect from him, what he has done at previous clubs, including Valencia and Wolves, and of course Porto. I've done a lot of research on the Valencia situation because I think it's probably the one that is most interesting and exciting for us as Spurs fans. At Valencia, he played most of the time, based on the players he had, an attacking 4-3-3 formation. He got them Champions League football in the one season he was there, which was impressive considering they hadn't been near that in a while. They scored 70 goals, conceded 32, which is a pretty good ratio between the two. He beat in that season Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, two teams that they hadn't beaten in a long time. So he was getting the best out of his side. What he has been considered, especially in this scenario with Valencia, but also with other teams as well, is he's versatile. He's very adaptive. He looks at the teams, the players he's got, and the teams he's with, and makes a decision based on those players. And there's a lot of talk about him being overly pragmatic, overly defensive, which we'll get to when it comes to his stint at Wolves, which is where that I think that reputation comes from, especially since it was in the Premier League. But at Valencia, he was quite attacking, and he was known for being for being open and fluid, and had the ability to sort of base what he was going to do based on the players he had at his disposal. Now, moving on to, I'm going to do a little bit on Porto. Porto was very similar, but I don't know a heck of a lot about it. I did some research, but it wasn't enough to really, I don't think, for me to give a good sense of it. And I think I spent a lot of time watching what he did at Wolves because obviously he's in the Premier League, and we played him a number of times. In the Premier League, he was considered obviously very defensive, very pragmatic. He did beat Spurs twice, finished 7th 2 seasons in a row. We'll get to the last season where he ended up quitting essentially, or the mutually consented to moving on. But at Wolves, I think he gets a bit of a bad rap for being potentially too defensive. I actually thought he was quite. It was counterattacking, so yes, it wasn't on the front foot, possession-based football, but it was very much attacking when seeing opportunities. It was an opportunity-based system, often with 3 at the back. Still a bit versatile, but not as versatile. And I do think that comes down to the players he had at his disposal. He took the players he had. He got the best out of them. They played 3 at the back a lot with wing backs. Doherty, as we all know, and I think there's a lot of us who, for good reason, are skeptical on his ability to do anything for Spurs. But obviously, with Nuno coming to Spurs, there's a chance he could get him back to his best, and I think we might see something from Doherty that we'd want to see. Having said that, I'd prefer somebody else to come in, but it is what it is in that scenario. He likes to play with a small squad because he likes to keep, and this might sound familiar to somebody else that we like. He likes to keep unity within the squad. The same players kind of playing a lot, so he doesn't have to rotate too often. And that has, especially with those first 2 seasons, finishing 7th for 2 seasons in a row, did him really, really well in that scenario because he was able to play the same players, really get the system built and designed for what it was he wanted to do based on the players he had. They're very lucky with minimal injuries as well. Didn't have a ton of injuries, which is, when you're playing with a small squad, incredibly key. And of course, we'll get to that when it comes to the third season. I do think that he had some really, really good players that he was able to get the best out of. He likes playing with younger players, which Pedro Neto was one he got a lot out of. The center half, who I think we'll be looking at probably, who's currently at the Euros. I could see him coming to. Forgive me, I forgot his name at the moment. Somebody's gonna trash me in the comments for it. But anyway, he's gotten the best out of some younger players, and I think that obviously with the transition we are in, and we need to be honest about it, we are in a transition. We are not in a scenario where we should be thinking, oh my God, this is the worst possible scenario. It's not great. It's a bit underwhelming, but based on what I've done and the research wise, I do think that this is a manager that will be good for us with a transition as long as the management of the players out is done correctly. I think that's our biggest issue, is getting players out before getting the right players in. If we can do both of those, even just on a smaller scale, like a 3 to 4 players, the first transition or the first transfer window, and then of course in January, if we can get a couple more and do the same and kind of like slowly get through it. I do think he's going to get the best of our youth. We're going to see Sessegnon in the team. I think that's a good thing. I think Skip will play with the side as has been announced. I think that's a good thing. I think he's going to get the best out of these players. I think we should be excited about that. I know for a lot of people it's hard to get excited. I get that, but we weren't excited about Pochettino when he came in. He's got more experience in the Premier League than Pochettino does. He finished higher than Pochettino did in the Premier League 2 seasons in a row, until Poch obviously got the rebuild that he needed with some backing, which is what we'd hope after 2 seasons. I'm a little concerned about the 2-season. It's only 2 seasons for the contract, and then he's got one extra if they decide to pull the trigger. I think that's a good thing to some extent, because it's going to force him to prove himself. But at the same time, it's a little bit of like, I'm not sure. And so from a confidence perspective, it might seem like it's a little bit sketchy. But overall, I'm excited because we have a manager, and I know that's kind of lowering the expectation. But it is what it is. It's where we are. It's who we are as a club at the moment. We've gone down. We've gone backwards since Pochettino said we needed to rebuild, and this is where we are now. We're now actually doing that rebuild. I hope it goes well. I hope we can figure it out, and I hope Nuno proves everybody wrong. I'm going to back him. I think everybody else should back him, and I want to see what happens by the end of the transfer window to see where we're at. I think most of us would agree that's going to make a massive difference in where we finish next season and the type of football we're going to see and the type of tenure that he's going to have with the club. So thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and I appreciate your time. And check me out on Tottenham Away, and thank you, Robbie, for having me to do this analysis. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.